The first time Queen Elisabetta saw her husband, he was staring at her through a mirror. Not directly, but from behind, eyes fixed on the reflection of her neckline as she practiced her coronation speech. He didn't smile, he didn't blink. He just watched. Like a hunter studying prey, he already owned Dot. She was 17. He was her cousin. Their marriage had been arranged since her christening. Two branches of the same royal bloodline, uniting for divine continuity. That's what the council called it divine. What they meant was strategic, because if the blood stayed in the family, no one else could lay claim to the throne, not even God. But Elisabetta had read the diaries hidden in a velvet pouch behind the altar, letters from her great-aunt Sophia, who'd written in a shaking hand, "My child was born without breath. They said it was fate, but I know it was the blood. The blood is rotting." She tried to run once, before the wedding, packed a satchel of coins, and climbed barefoot down the servants' gate. But the guard who caught her wasn't angry. He was afraid. "They'll kill me if I let you go, Majesty. They killed the last man who tried." So she married Prince Thomas under a sky so black with clouds it felt like morning. No birds, no music. Just the endless echo of clanging bells and fake smiles. On their wedding night, he drank alone. She sat in the corner, still in her gown, staring at a crack in the ceiling. When he finally turned to her, he whispered, "You look just like my sister." She said nothing. She didn't dare ask if that was meant as comfort. The years passed slowly. The kingdom bloomed, but the palace dimmed. Thomas spent his days locked in the study, muttering to maps that no longer mattered. Elisabetta wandered the gardens with a book in her lap and fear in her spine. The walls whispered at night, and sometimes she heard her own name in voices that didn't belong to anyone living. Every queen in her family had suffered. Some died in childbirth. Others were retired to monasteries before their minds crumbled. One, they said, threw herself from the tower, though the blood-stained slippers told a different story. Elisabetta began to catalogue them. Names, dates, symptoms. All of them married within the family. All of them slowly unraveling. She kept her notes hidden beneath the floorboards, next to a child's music box that no longer played. When she became pregnant, the kingdom rejoiced, but Elisabetta wept. She prayed, begged, bargained, with silence. Let him be whole, let him be free. The birth was long and brutal. Blood soaked the linens. The midwives whispered prayers she'd never heard before. On sharp like curses, when the baby arrived, he did not cry. His head was too large, his limbs too thin, but his eyes were wide open, and he stared at her like he knew Thomas never asked to see him. He only said, "Is it a boy?" And when she nodded, he grunted, "Then we've done our duty." The child named Julian lived, but never walked. He would sit by the window, humming to himself and turning the same page of a book for hours. When courtiers visited, they were told he was sensitive and tutored privately. But behind the heavy curtains, Elisabetta watched him press his face to the glass and mouth, words only she could hear. "I remember, fire. Why does the moon have teeth?" At night, she read him fairy tales and tried not to cry. He would fall asleep mid-sentence, his breathing labored, his fingers curled into claws. She kissed his forehead and wondered how long he had before they declared him unfit. She tried again 2 years later. Another child, stillborn. The doctors looked at each other and then at her. "This is a pattern, Your Grace. Perhaps it is time you consider stopping," but the king insisted. "One heir is not enough. What if he dies? You will try again." The third pregnancy ended in miscarriage. The fourth, in madness, not hers, Thomas's. He began screaming at shadows, accusing the staff of poisoning his wine. He locked the chapel doors and wouldn't let the priest out for 3 days. Eventually, he wandered into the throne room and began clawing at the carpet, whispering, "The worms are inside me." The council called it exhaustion, but Elisabetta knew. She'd seen the same descent in the journals. One night, she found him in the nursery, weeping over Julian's sleeping body. He looked at her, eyes hollow. "I didn't want this," he said. But they told me it would make us gods. She didn't answer. The next morning, he was gone, taken to a sanatorium far from the capital. Officially, he was recovering. Unofficially, he'd tried to throw himself from the spire and survived with shattered legs and a fractured skull. Elizabetta ruled alone after that. The people called her the Iron Queen. They thought it was a compliment. But she wasn't made of iron. She was made of bone and blood and secrets that clawed at her from the inside. Julian's health declined. He was sick but barely spoke. Sometimes, he would just scream for hours. Staring at nothing, the doctors said his organs were failing. That he wouldn't live past 7. She sat beside him every night, read him stories, sang lullabies, prayed to a God who had long since stopped listening. Then, on a rainy night in spring, he looked at her and said, clear as a bell, "You have to stop the curse, Mother." She froze. "What did you say?" He pointed to the window. She told me, "The Queen in the mirror." She said, "It ends with you." He died that night, peacefully, almost too quietly. She buried him in the royal crypt, but placed no name on his tomb, just a symbol, a broken chain. That night, she took the journals, the records, the family tree, and burned them. She summoned the council the next morning. And before their powdered faces and quills could settle, she spoke. There will be no more cousin marriages, no more blood purity, no more curses in velvet robes. I will choose the next heir not by blood, but by worth. The council gasped. One fainted. She stared them down like a blade. You may call it treason, I call it survival. And when she left the chamber, no one dared follow her. She ruled another decade, never remarried, adopted a distant orphaned relative, a bright girl with strong legs and kind eyes, and named her heir. History tried to rewrite the story. Said Julian died of fever. Said Thomas was poisoned by enemies. Said Elizabetta was cold and cruel. But deep beneath the palace, behind a sealed door, her final letter remains. To the child who saved me, with a whisper your voice broke generations of silence, and in your name, I broke the chain. If this story shook you, made you see the truth behind the golden crowns, give it a like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more untold history. Because sometimes, the greatest rebellions are the quiet ones, whispered in the dark by those history tried to silence.